Today in Northern Revolutions, I'm going to share with you my tips for starting a record collection. So stay tuned. Hey YouTube, welcome to Northern Revolutions. I'm Rob. Today I thought I'd do something a little bit different. I thought I would do a video where I share my tips for starting a record collection. So what prompted this was last week I was interviewed by the local newspaper in the city that I live in. They were doing a feature article on the resurgence of vinyl, and they interviewed a local record shop owner and me. Apparently I'm an expert on records. Who knew? But the reporter asked me, one of the questions that she asked me was, what advice can I give to someone that wants to get into the hobby of record collecting? And I gave an answer, but I've been thinking about it ever since. And there's a lot more that I have to say on the topic. I've been collecting records for 30 years. I've learned a lot myself. Do I know everything? No. Do I know a lot about the hobby? Yes. So I'm going to share with all you beginners out there, folks that want to start a collection, 5 things that I think will make your record journey a little bit easier. So before I do that, if everyone could do me a favor, and please hit that like button. Your likes certainly help the YouTube algorithm get my videos shown to more people, so I appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed already, please consider hitting the subscribe button. I have a lot of other great videos about vinyl collecting. And for those of you that are already subscribers, thank you for your support. I appreciate it. And also don't forget that bell notification icon, which will let you know when I've uploaded something new. So I put together 5 tips that I think are helpful when it comes to collecting records. So number 1, get a decent turntable. So what I mean by that, you don't need to go out and buy the most expensive turntable out there. You can see turntables anywhere from, $39 to thousands of dollars. You don't need incredibly expensive stereo equipment to get started. But, and here's the most important point, please stay away from those cheap $40 and $60 plastic turntables. I don't want to name a name because I don't want to besmirch a brand, but you know the cheap ones I'm talking about, those portable suitcase ones and those cheap plastic ones. Don't go for those. And there's 2 reasons why. Number 1, they sound like garbage. Number 2, and arguably the more important of the 2 points, they will damage your records. You pay good money for records, whether they're new or used, doesn't matter. You still pay decent money for them. You want to play them on a turntable that's not going to damage your records. So what do you need to look for in a turntable? I'm not going to make any recommendations. There are tons of videos out there on the basics of buying a turntable. But what I will say is, you don't need an elaborate stereo system. I have a record player and an amplifier and a CD and a media streamer and speakers and all that. You don't need all of that. You need a turntable that's of decent quality. So, you can see those Audio-Technica ones at Best Buy that are, $150 or whatever. That's a good place to start. When you're buying a turntable, you need to consider how you're going to get that sound out of the turntable. You've got to connect it to speakers. So a lot of turntables nowadays will come with a built-in preamp. If it has a built-in preamp, then all you need to do is plug in some speakers. If it doesn't have a built-in preamp, which older turntables generally do not, or higher-end turntables do not, you'll have to plug it into an amplifier. Now, many of you probably have amplifiers with your surround sound systems in your home. may not be the right ones. You need to check to make sure that it has a dedicated phono input on the back of that amplifier. You're best to just get an older amplifier. There's enough vintage ones going around now that you can get them reasonably priced. Go that route. Or you can buy a small preamp that you plug your record player into and then plug into speakers. So you don't need a ton of audio equipment is what I'm getting at. But please don't play your records on those cheap plastic turntables, because they'll wreck your records and they will sound like garbage. My second tip, point number 2, buy what you love. I mean, it maybe sounds like a silly thing to say, but buy what you love. Buy the music that you're going to listen to, because really record collecting should be about buying music that you're going to listen to. Yes, there are people that collect records for the sake of just collecting the record, but it really should be about the music. So buy the music that you love. And it doesn't matter what it is. Whatever makes you happy, whatever music you derive enjoyment from, buy that and spin it and enjoy it. The reason I bring up that comment is there is occasionally small corners of the record collecting world that sort of frown on the overly commercial stuff because it's not cool. Who cares? Do you enjoy it? Buy it. Enjoy it. Don't not buy something because it's not cool to listen to Taylor Swift. Guess what? I have 1,000 records. Do I have a Taylor Swift record? I do. Is it cool to own it? Probably not. Do I care? No. I think Evermore and Folklore are great records. So there you go. That kind of leads into point number 3. Buy what you can afford. I mentioned earlier in this video that vinyl record collecting is expensive. There's a bit of a startup cost to get a decent turntable and a decent pair of speakers. But the records themselves are expensive. They are going up in price. New records nowadays, good luck trying to find a single LP that's under, $40. I'm speaking Canadian dollars. I don't know what they are in the States, maybe $30, I don't know. But they're probably 20% more than they were 5 years ago. I guess it's supply and demand, and I guess there's a vinyl shortage, so maybe that's the reason. Maybe labels are just realizing that we'll pay more. But buy what you can afford. And this was where the question from the newspaper reporter got me thinking about all of this. And I said to them, if it's someone that's just getting into the hobby, younger people, because a lot of younger people are getting into vinyl, people that weren't around when the original crowd was listening to vinyl back in, 70s and 80s. Maybe they don't have a lot of money to throw around. So I said, really consider used records. Used records are a lot easier to find, and they're a lot cheaper. Now, you have to be mindful of what condition they're in. If you get something that's beat up, the record is scratched, it's not going to play great. But you can still find a lot of used records that are in decent condition and sound really nice. And there's a lot of debate among people in the vinyl community. What sounds better, original pressings or remasters? In a lot of cases, original pressings sound very good because that's how the artist intended the recordings to be. I'm not going to weigh in on that in this video. I do have a video where I talk about that on my channel. But if all you can afford are used records, go buy used records. There is 50, 60 years of used records out there. And there's a limitless amount of wonderful music for you to discover. So buy what you can afford. If you can't afford new stuff, go search out vintage vinyl. It's a lot more accessible, a lot cheaper. Point number 4, care for your record collection. So there's a few facets to this. First of all, you have to care for the discs themselves. You should have some kind of an anti-static brush or something to clean the record off every time you put it on the turntable before you spin it. Dirt and grime is the enemy of records. Any dirt or grime that's in the grooves, the needle will carry along and affect the sound. Could also damage the grooves in the vinyl. So always brush your record off before you put the needle down. Also, touch the side of the record. Don't touch the actual playing surface with your hand because the dirt and grime from your fingers can get into the grooves. It's a pain in the butt to clean. If you're buying used records, you really should have a record cleaner. Now, there are very expensive ultrasonic cleaners out there. There are also cheaper, like Spin Clean, for example. And I'll leave a link to those so that you could see what I'm talking about. It's a very good habit to get into cleaning your records, especially when you're buying used records. Because there's a good chance whoever you bought them from, if it's an indie record store, they've probably cleaned it. But if you're buying it at a flea market or a thrift store or garage sale, the records probably aren't cleaned. So you really should clean your records. Another point about maintenance is you should always sleeve your records. So you can buy these, a lot of records come with them too. These, I guess they're polypropylene. It's a little plastic sleeve. And it's a very good thing to take your record and put them in a plastic sleeve. Why do you do that? It keeps the jacket in good shape. Now, what a lot of people will do is they'll actually take the record out and put it in the sleeve behind the jacket so that you don't leave any ring wear. I don't do that. I see the merits to it, but I just don't like doing that. So, at the very least, put a sleeve on your records. And the last point about caring for your collection is make sure you store them properly. As you can see behind me, all my records are stood up vertically. And every record collector will tell you to do the same thing. Do not pile your records. Do not stack them on top of each other. You'll damage the jackets. Stand them up. That's how they're meant to be stored, and it will give you longer life on your records. And the last point, and I think it's an important one, buy local first. What do I mean by that? Well, there's lots of places you can get records. You could get them at your local record store. You can get them at flea markets, garage sales, thrift stores. You can get them at some of the big box stores. I know in the US, Walmart has a lot of exclusive pressings. I think Target sells records now. You could get them online through Amazon. You can get them online through eBay, through Discogs, which is a record collecting website. There's a lot of places to get records. But if you're just starting out, I would recommend buy local first. What I mean by that, if you have an indie record store, an independently owned record store, go see them for a couple reasons. They're the lifeblood of this hobby, so support them. But also, if you have any questions, if you have anything that, you're unsure about the record collecting hobby, the people in those stores, they'll answer them for you. And don't be afraid to ask those questions. Any dumb question is the one that you don't ask. So the other thing too is if you're buying local, it's in your hand. You can see it. You can play it. If you're buying online, eBay, Discogs, whatever, you're going to pay more because you're paying shipping. You're trusting the buyer that you're buying it from. Listen, I bought a lot of records online. I bought a lot of stuff off eBay over the years. It's sort of collectible stuff, that I couldn't find locally. For example, my Beatles UK first pressings, obviously, chances of finding any of those locally are pretty slim, so eBay is the alternative. Expensive, you're sort of taking a leap of faith. Not there's anything wrong with buying online, but until you sort of know exactly what you're looking for and you've looked around locally, I would say buy local first. It's the best way to start your collection. So those are my thoughts on how to start a record collection. I could probably think of another 10 more points, but those I think are the maybe the 5 most important. So please let me know in the comments if you've got any suggestions for viewers of this video that might want to start a record collection. I'd love to hear what everyone has to say. That's all for me today. Thank you for watching, everybody. I will see you again real soon. Catch you on the flip side.